Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
We're constantly surrounded. I mean, heck, you even go through YouTube and you think, okay, on YouTube, you get to watch, somebody cooking or someone mowing or something like that. But half the videos are, Trump did this or, Iran is doing this and Israel is doing this, you're constantly bombarded with it. And, and also, price of gas and everything else. I mean, heck, even if you're not thinking about it, when you're driving along the road, you pass the gas station and you see, the sign, you're like, good Lord. I watched one day here in Florida, it went up 40 cents in one night.
Behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Tonight's episode is titled Financial Fear and Mental Health. Why America feels so stressed right now. Something feels different. People feel it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, when opening bills, when checking their bank account, or lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning wondering, how much harder is life going to get? Over the past several years, Americans have faced wave after wave of financial pressure. Food prices have surged. Utility costs continue climbing. Rent and housing prices remain painfully high in many areas. Insurance costs have skyrocketed. Vehicle prices have reached historic levels. And many families feel like they are working harder just to stay in the same place. According to recent national reports, the average price of groceries in America has risen dramatically over the past few years. Many everyday household items now cost significantly more than they once did. Millions of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt has climbed to record highs, and financial stress is now considered one of the leading causes of anxiety among adults in the United States. But tonight's conversation is about more than money. It's about what financial fear does to the human mind. Stress changes people. People sleep less, argue more, feel emotionally exhausted, lose patience, feel hopeless, withdraw from relationships, or begin living in a constant state of survival mode. And while people try to keep going, the world itself often feels overwhelming. Wars dominate headlines. Political division grows deeper. Social media fuels anger and outrage. Artificial intelligence creates uncertainty about the future work. And many people quietly wonder, what kind of future are we heading toward? The result? A nation that feels emotionally drained, not weak, not broken, just overwhelmed. Tonight, we discuss the growing connection between financial stress, uncertainty, fear, and mental health. Why so many people feel emotionally exhausted right now, and how we begin finding balance, hope, and emotional stability again, even during uncertain times. Because no matter how heavy life feels, your life matters. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, and welcome to another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm Steve Hodgson. I'm here alongside my co-host and my mental fitness guru, licensed psychotherapist, Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Doing really well today.
We're going to be doing a really, really interesting show. It's a very timely show right now.
Yes.
Actually, when I was looking around and researching, this is like the number one trending mental health topic, at the time when we're recording this. But I just want to say before we go into this, this is not a political show.
Right.
So we're going to be talking about topics that are taking place today, all around us, but this is nothing meant Democrat, Republican, nothing at all. So I want to make sure people understand that. But as always, before we start the show off, I want to start with a word from our sponsor, Waypost Counseling. Now, folks, we cover some hefty topics on our show, and I know many of you are thinking you might need assistance or guidance, but you probably don't know where to turn to. Now, remember, in Waypost Counseling, you can speak to your therapist from the privacy of your own home. But please remember, you must make the call first. We can't make the call for you. You have to make that call. And remember, that's also not a sign of weakness, but a sign of hope and a sign of strength. So please give them a listen.
Maybe you didn't expect to hear this today, but if you're watching right now, this might be for you. Life can feel heavy sometimes, not overwhelming all at once, just quietly difficult. You are feeling stress, anxiety, thoughts that don't seem to slow down. You are trying as hard as you can, but your body wants that next hit. Or maybe it's your relationship, where conversations feel harder, and the connection that you once experienced just doesn't feel the same anymore. You tell yourself, I am not going to be so abusive the next time. Or maybe it's something more private, like gambling, something that started small, but now it's affecting more than you ever expected. And maybe part of you keeps thinking, I should be able to handle this on my own. But you don't have to. At Waypost Counseling, support is available for individuals, for couples, and for those struggling with addiction. And you can access it from the privacy of your own home. Through secure online sessions, you can talk to someone who understands without pressure, without judgment. It's just a space to be heard. Something inside you is saying, maybe it's time. Trust that feeling. Contact Waypost Counseling today. Call 317-762-0904 or dial 317-659-0179. Also, you can visit waypostcounseling.com for more information. Because your life matters, and everyone deserves support along the way. Make the call today.
Well, Dr. Davis, tonight's topic is one I think most everyone can relate to right now. I know I can, as I'm getting ready to go grocery shopping when the show is over. Okay, people are stressed. They're exhausted, and for many, it feels like no matter how hard they work, they can't just seem to get ahead.
Yeah. We're seeing people emotionally overwhelmed from multiple directions all at once. Financial, uncertainty about the future, work stress, political division, world conflict, negative news, and even fears about technology and AI changing the workforce.
It used to be people worried mainly about paying a few bills or getting through a really tough month. But, it feels like people are carrying constant emotional pressure now. Grocery prices are up. Boy, do we know that. Gas prices fluctuate constantly.
Yeah.
We were just discussing that before we came on the air about gas prices. Housing costs are through the roof, literally, pardon the pun, and families are trying to figure out how to survive financially while still protecting their mental health. People are just barely living paycheck to paycheck.
And the difficult part psychologically is that chronic uncertainty keeps the brain in a heightened stress response. When people feel like the world is unstable or unpredictable, the mind and body often stay in survival mode. That can impact sleep, relationships, physical health, concentration, and even emotional regulation.
I think many people watching tonight may be quietly dealing with anxiety, anger, fear, or even hopelessness, and maybe don't even realize how much pressure they're carrying. I know it has me very personally concerned.
Exactly. Sometimes people think, I'm just tired or I'm just stressed, when in reality, their emotional reserves are completely depleted. When that happens long enough, it can affect every part of a person's life.
Now, think about that, folks. How many times have you talked to someone just feel wiped out today? They're not tired. They're burnt out mentally. And if you start talking to them, you'll find out they've had a really tough day, or they got bills coming out of their earlobes, their car just broke down, So
Yeah.
tonight we're going to talk openly about financial fear, emotional exhaustion, uncertainty about the future, and why so many Americans feel mentally and emotionally overwhelmed right now.
And hopefully also provide some understanding, practical insight, and encouragement for people who may feel like they're carrying this burden entirely alone.
And this is a really important conversation. So I ask everybody, please stay with us. And note that, again, as I said, not a political discussion, not blaming any candidate or politician. We're blaming them all, but no. We are a mental health podcast and
Freudian slip, anyone?
yes, we're a mental health podcast and only concerned to you with what the world is doing to your mental health and how we can assist you with navigating
Yeah.
some of these troubled times that we're living in. So, let me ask you, Dr. Davis, does it feel like people today are carrying a different kind of stress than maybe they were like 5 or 10 years ago?
Definitely. I would say so. People today are dealing with a constant state of mental stimulation and uncertainty. Um, and many people didn't experience that thing a decade ago. So financial pressures, we've got social media, political division, world events, information overload. I mean, it's just our world has become a world of always on stress. Like the stress is never turned off. So in the past, people had periods where they could kind of mentally disconnect. But today, many people feel like their nervous system never really fully powers down. And it makes me think of last time I went to the eye doctor, or it was a few times ago. I went to the eye doctor and I was telling my eye doctor, I said, yeah, it's just like I'm not seeing as clearly as I used to. And she said, how old are you? And I don't know, back then I was probably 46 or something. And she said, oh yeah, you need reading glasses. It was like, well, you didn't even look at my eyes. But she was just saying that, that becomes the norm. And I was like, wow. And I think that we're living in a world right now where stress really, even more so than ever before, has become the norm.
Hey, don't feel bad. I go to the eye doctor. They said, "Do you remember how old you are?" At my age, but no, okay. But to get back, I'm sorry, I was just
That's all
in my
right.
head there. But I think a lot of it too is we can't get away from it like we used to
Yeah.
5, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, she was saying, she was like, you stare at a screen. She was like, well, yeah, people's eyes are hurting more now.
Hmm.
Sorry, I totally forgot what I was saying. And I said, well, why is that? And she goes, well, think about it. Most of us, most people nowadays, if you work a desk job, you're staring at a screen all day. And then you take a break from that, and stare at a smaller screen. And it was like, wow, I had never really thought of that.
It's probably one of the reasons why I don't like using a laptop.
Yeah.
And I use the 25-inch screens that I got because, heck, I got a magnifying glass in my drawer, okay, to read papers sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, but the fact is that, yeah, you're right. If I'm not on this computer, you know, I find myself more and more now on the phone,
Yeah.
looking at my phone, and we're on social media. We're constantly surrounded. I mean, heck, you even go through YouTube and you think, okay,
Yeah.
on YouTube, you get to watch, somebody cooking or someone mowing or something like that. But half the videos are, Trump did this, or,
Yeah.
Iran is doing this and Israel is doing this,
Yeah.
you're constantly bombarded with it. And, and also, price of gas and everything else. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
even if you're not thinking about it, when you're driving along the road, you pass the gas station and you see, the sign, you're like, good Lord. Yeah, I
Yeah.
watched one day here in Florida, it went up 40 cents in one night.
Wow.
It went from like 417 to like 457. And I remember my wife Jen was with me and I was like, didn't we just yesterday was like four, like 10 or 11? She goes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm
Man.
like, but this was overnight. There's no way, okay, that happened. So, how does financial uncertainty impact mental health so deeply? I mean, even for people who may be still working or functioning day to day.
So with financial stress, it touches everything very primal in people. safety and survival. So even if someone's still functioning on the, outwardly, a lot of times uncertainty about paying bills or supporting their family, healthcare, housing, uncertainty about the future, it just creates chronic emotional tension, underneath the surface. So human beings generally handle hard situations better than uncertain ones. And it's the unpredictability that often keeps the brain in a heightened state of alert.
Plus a lot of people, they keep that inside.
Yeah.
People are embarrassed to say, I'm behind on my bills. I can't wait to get paid this week because they're going to shut the electricity off if I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a conversation they're going to start having with most people, especially coworkers and stuff. And that stress has got to be building up inside of them,
Oh, yeah.
and so they're functioning day to day, they're going to work, but they're wound up tighter than a ball
Yeah.
inside. And, we'll talk about it. I mean, that probably even affects their relationships.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
whether it be coworkers or at home. It's probably even worse at home with the stress. So, can chronic financial stress actually change the way people think, sleep, or emotionally respond to others?
Yes, all of the above. So all of the above. So chronic stress, it significantly affects, our concentration, patience, memory, sleep, all of that. So people under financial strain often become more irritable, emotionally reactive, withdrawn. They have a shorter fuse, so to speak. Um, and sleep suffers also because the brain has difficulty shutting down, or shutting off worry and problem solving thoughts. And so a lot of people will experience racing thoughts when they're trying to lay down and go to sleep, you know.
As I'm sure you'll agree, don't own a business.
Oh, yeah.
Because you go to
Don't own
sleep
a business
thinking
unless someone else entirely runs it for you.
runs it. Yes, exactly. Because, people don't realize that, oh, you got a maid. Yeah, but you know what? You sleep at night. You leave work
Yeah.
and you leave it. Okay. We'd never leave that behind. And, when you said, you shut your brain off, I get that.
Yeah.
And I don't even own a business anymore. And sometimes I can't shut my brain off. It's so
Yeah.
used to running, 24 hours and 7 days a week. And in
Yeah.
a
It's
few
like,
weeks,
I call it the circular list of check boxes, just
yeah.
constant. Check, 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 check,
And when, and then you become, OCD on
Yeah.
top of that, where you just, did I do this? Okay, wait a minute. Did I pay that bill?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Start
So,
questioning everything.
yes. Now, many people say they feel emotionally exhausted all the time. What exactly is happening psychologically when someone feels stuck in survival mode?
Well, so when we're in survival mode, our brain begins like prioritizing immediate threats over long-term threats. So psychologically, we become hyper vigilant, and hyper focused on simply getting through the day, just surviving. The nervous system stays activated for too long. That can then lead to emotional numbness or burnout, irritability. And survival mode is exhausting because the mind and body were never designed to stay in a state of constant, stress.
And the next question, we basically even talked about this here, and I think it follows right up with what you just said there. Those nonstop news cycles,
Yeah.
social media outrage. Even if you're not reading news, you're reading somebody ticked off about this or ticked off about that. And then here's the word, folks, okay? And if you don't know what it means, go back and look it up at one of our previous episodes, doomscrolling.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what all of this is making fear and anxiety even worse for people.
Yeah. It is. It is. So the brain naturally pays attention to threat-related information, out of survival. So negative news tends to grab attention more strongly than positive information. So when people are constantly exposed to conflict and outrage, it creates the perception that danger is everywhere all the time. So doom scrolling can also reinforce anxiety because people rarely leave those experiences feeling calmer or more hopeful. It
Yeah.
just reiterates hopelessness a lot of times.
People will even begin to overreact
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
things. I mean, I read a story, and this is, at taping, I guess it was yesterday, where and again, this isn't going into politics, folks, but outside an ICE facility, there were protesters, and these two guys, I guess Mexican or whatever, came out, and everybody was cheering. Yes, okay. ICE didn't detain them and stuff; they let them out, and it turns out those two guys were employees
Oh,
there. Okay, and they didn't say nothing; they just like walked away and stuff. But it's that overreaction thing
yeah,
where everything is, why did they do this? Why did, and I get it for law enforcement. We talk about, you were talking about financial overwhelm, but, overwhelm for them, the stress overwhelm
sure.
must
Yeah,
be amazing right now. You sneeze in the road. Oh, he sneezed on me.
yeah,
And out here in Ocala, one of the things I'm seeing here constantly in the paper, someone suing, let's say like Walmart, Publix, or someplace because they slipped and fell over something. It's like if you see something on the floor, what happened to personal responsibility of now everybody's trying to get that quick money and the stress
yeah,
is building up a lot. Now,
yes.
we're going to talk about something we've talked about on some of the other episodes, which again is AI.
Mhm.
Okay. A lot of work is fear automation, even AI replacing jobs. I mean, think about it. You have an accountant that, an accounts payable person that's
Yeah,
doing it, what if AI can do it right away and just send an invoice and you pay for it online, and it automatically in the computer system, there's one less employee they need. And
yeah.
I'm just using the most
Sure.
simplest of examples for that. So even the uncertainty itself can create anxiety. Okay, just watch any Joe Rogan or Diary of a CEO. It's like the doomsday thing. Okay, what AI is going to do in a few years. So why do fears about employment hit people so hard emotionally?
Well, because work is tied to much more than just income. For many people, it's connected to their identity, purpose, self-worth. So when people feel losing, or when people are afraid of losing their job, or becoming replaceable, it creates feelings of insecurity, and they feel like they're not in control. So even uncertainty about the future of work can trigger anxiety, and that's because the brain naturally wants stability and predictability.
You know, After I watch, it's almost on all of them now. No matter what show you watch, there's something on one of these talk podcasts about AI.
Oh
And
yeah.
the people that are creating AI that are screaming doomsday's coming, blah
Uh-huh.
blah blah, and that's not helping people.
No,
Yeah, I don't get me wrong, we need to be aware of it.
absolutely.
And I think with as far as people with employment, how do I take care of my family? If I lose my job, how do I pay the bills? How do I keep the roof over my head? How do I send my children to school? How do I put clothes on their back, food on the table? I
Those are
get
real
that.
concerns. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I worry about that and I'm retired when I see that happening. It's like, this is not the world I don't think any of us signed up for, So,
yeah.
let's talk about when we touched really lightly on it, this financial stress that I like to call a financial overwhelm, because I think
Yeah.
that's really what this show is really about. Uh, how does it affect marriages, family, even friendships over time?
Well, financial stress, it tends to reduce emotional bandwidth, because it's a constant hypervigilance, constant fear. So people become more fatigued, reactive, withdrawn. Communication can suffer, obviously. And couples may argue more about spending, responsibilities, or the future than they typically would. Parents under stress may become emotionally unavailable or impatient without intending to be. Friendships can change because people isolate more when they feel overwhelmed, or especially when they're ashamed about a situation, which, I mean, that they shouldn't be ashamed. you know, because of the state of the world. But, that's,
Well, I think a lot of people too, because when you start talking to people about the price of gas,
Mhm.
let's just use as an example. Okay. And again, folks, non-political show. Okay. But, you know, uh, you and I, we had a good conversation about price of gas where it is in Indiana
Yeah.
and Florida and stuff. But all of a sudden you'll start saying, well, that's because Trump did this, or, we started that stupid war with Iran. So now, it just becomes a regular conversation like we had just
Yeah.
over, gee, I wonder what the price of gas is there because you got
Yeah.
to get gas. Turns into a political fight,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and that will, families, Hank, go back to the very first episode we did of this show
Mhm.
about politics and
Yeah.
families over the holidays. Okay. That's so important. I'm still watching it within my own family. Now, the person who I told you had removed me, the relative that removed me,
Yeah.
actually added me back
Oh, really?
recently. Yeah.
Good.
Removed my brother. but I guess when I looked at the lesser of the two evils, I was the lesser of the two evils, only because I don't really go on social media anymore and talk about politics.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You're just adding, that's a different kind of stress and overwhelm
Yeah.
that's happening on there. I mean, there's so much going on with bullying. There's so much
Oh,
going on in the internet with shaming. People. I watched the video last night, but I know it was from a few days earlier. Jack Osborne.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now everybody always, oh, he must be sick. He's lost weight. And no, he's not sick, and no, he hasn't lost weight. Okay, what he did was shave his beard.
Yeah.
That's all it was he shaved his beard off. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, people were like,
There's
"Oh,
something
look at
wrong.
this! Look at this!" And like I
Yeah.
said, I'm only going to dress this once because it was taking him off, and I get it. It
Yeah.
ticks people off. Now, I want to talk about one other thing we didn't talk about yet, which is gambling,
Uh-huh.
because we're talking about financial stress.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, we had Jeff on earlier on one of our other episodes. Again, a really great episode. If you haven't watched, you need to
Yeah.
go back and watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
He has one heck of a story.
yeah, the most raw story I think we've had on here. That definitely in my top 5 episodes we've ever done, and I
Yeah.
don't think anything will push it out of the top 5 that we've done. But that financial stress. Even we'll use him as an example that he lived with, knowing that he owed all that money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's got to destroy you as a person.
There really are. I mean, one of the first things, especially with substance use disorder or any type of mental health stuff, but especially with gambling, with addictive disorders, because gambling leads to, a lot of times, um, extremely heavy debt. One of the first things we look for is there, any suicidal ideation or things like that? Because I'd have to look at the actual statistics to give you a specific number, but
Hmm.
what I can tell you is that with problem gambling, the rates of suicide go up significantly.
Yeah.
And that directly correlates with the amount of debt, you
And
know?
we've done enough shows on suicide, and basically, every person, whether it be gambling, addiction, or for whatever reason, relationship, just all sees the one thing. At least to me, there's no
Yeah.
way out. There's no other way out, I should say.
Yeah.
Even though there are ways out, there is no other way out. Except that, and that's part of why we're doing the show today, not for the gambling portion of it, but we want to make sure people don't get that stressed
Yeah. I mean,
that
because
they're
the
getting to
reality
that
is
point.
there is no amount of money that is worth someone I love.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no.
It's just sad. And, I somehow or other, here comes a conspiracy, Steve. Somehow or other, I think we're all being led to feeling that way. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more anger in people lately. Road rage. Heck,
Yeah.
I see that on the road all the time. Online hostility, short tempers. Can chronic stress and emotional overload contribute to that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Chronic stress lowers emotional tolerance. So when people are overloaded, etc., they often have less patience and reduced capacity to regulate their emotions. And the way I always explain that is like if you think of a person as a bucket and you think of stress as like water being poured into the bucket, a bucket can only
Hold so
hold
much.
so much water before it just starts overflowing and spilling all over everything around it. And that's kind of what happens with stress in regard to self-care. So the way I explain that to clients a lot of times is we've got to identify the things that help empty our bucket on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Whatever that is. If it's a good conversation, if it's eating a good meal, if it's working out, whatever it is that playing music, anything that reduces that stress is good.
I use Twitter or X. I'm sorry, it's not called Twitter anymore. I use X for the show. Okay,
Yeah.
I post up episodes of the show. I really don't use X for anything else. Okay, and a lot of times after I post something, I just scroll down my home feed.
Yeah.
Lately, all I'm seeing is violence.
Uh-huh.
These little violent videos. Someone in McDonald's
Yeah.
that is upset because, they got their order, wrong.
Yeah.
They gave them a small fry instead of a medium fry,
Oh,
and start flinging stuff and
yeah,
pushing the cash registers, taking swings at people. Um,
crashing
people
out.
just
That's what the kids are saying now, crashing out.
crash,
They
okay,
crashed
crashing,
out. Yeah.
even just like bumping into somebody, accidentally and starting, taking a swing.
Yeah.
We've gone. I don't know. I watched that. I stopped even scrolling through X because of that. Because I used to like to go down just to see some of like recording artists and stuff
Yeah.
that is what. But now I don't because I got to look at 20 videos like that.
Yeah.
Or not watch them, but they're there in a row.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Okay, where is this coming? And I never joined one of the sites. It's not like I, friended them or whatever we do on
Yeah.
Twitter there. Okay, connected with them. Why am I seeing them all?
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah. I mean, that emotional and financial overwhelm now has gotten out of line. So what I want to do, if we can, is just we covering some hefty stuff here. So let's break it up a little bit because it's that time of the show again.
It's the lightning round.
Yes.
Yes, it's the lightning round. Okay. I have 15 questions for Dr. Davis today, and he'll give us one word or short answers to each one. And if you don't know what it is, that means you're not watching the show, which means you're not subscribing and liking each episode. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Number one, what is the biggest source of stress of people right now?
Uncertainty.
Can financial stress be just as emotionally damaging as relationship stress?
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a true or false one.
Okay.
Constantly checking negative news can affect mental health.
Overwhelmingly true.
I'd laughed at that when I said it, but you know how many people do that?
Mhm.
I have friends that do that.
Yeah.
Okay, what's worse for mental health? Uncertainty or bad news?
Uncertainty.
Why do people tend to become more irritable or angry when they're financially stressed?
Because like I was talking about before, financial stress really activates survival, in our brain and in our body, and that's the reason.
Okay, what's one word you hear most often from overwhelmed clients?
Exhausted.
Yeah. The tired and exhausted. Number 7, can poor sleep make anxiety and stress dramatically worse?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to make you more irritable anyway.
Yeah.
So it will only exacerbate the other stuff. Do people today spend enough time truly relaxing mentally?
No.
See,
And I'm
and
one of them.
we have a show coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks, okay, with someone who's not only a psychic medium, but is a life coach, but also teaches a lot about meditation and how to relax. And trust me, folks, you're going to really want to watch that episode too. Is doomsday scrolling becoming emotionally addicted for some people?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And just think about a month ago, I didn't even know what the word doom scrolling meant. What's one healthy thing people can do to immediately lower their stress?
Stop comparing yourself to everybody else.
Now, 11,
slow down.
Yeah, slow down. Yep. Number 11, can constant fear and stress physically affect the body over time?
Very much so.
12, one thing people should stop doing if they want better mental health.
Stop being so hard on themselves.
13, one thing people should start doing for their emotional well-being.
Create a little bit of quiet time, for yourself each day, even if it's just 5 minutes, to kind of what I call let the steam roll off, let the steam of the day kind of roll off and dissipate, so quiet time for sure.
And that's what we'll learn about meditation later on, because that's basically the same thing. Can hope actually improve mental health?
Absolutely.
And the final lightning round question. What's one message you want viewers to remember tonight?
Yeah, our body is not meant to be in a constant, never-ending state of hypervigilance. So if you find yourself struggling or being overwhelmed, try and give yourself some grace, reach out for help, talk about it. You're not alone. I assure you, you are not alone if you're feeling overwhelmed in today's world.
Okay, I got 4 quick questions and we'll end with tonight.
Okay.
And we're going to have a shorter episode, folks, so we're giving you a break on. What are some of the warning signs that stress and anxiety are beginning to seriously affect someone's mental health?
So really, if they, one of the things that a client said, he said, I feel like one big nerve ending, one time. But, I think that was a good way of describing it. So some warning signs are, just being chronically irritable, exhausted, feeling emotionally numb. If you're having issues with sleep, isolating, all of those things are warning signs.
Make sure you're not hallucinating or anything else.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I say that only because one of my dog came up and laid on the bed, and when you started saying that, I looked over and he was like yawning or something, and the mouth was closing. It's like, is he talking to me? And I'm not paying attention here or something. Okay. Now, for viewers watching tonight who feel overwhelmed by the future, okay, maybe even the present, what are some healthy ways that can protect their mental and emotional well-being right now? What simple things that they can do right now?
One of the things is pump the brakes on media, because like you said earlier, there's just so much negativity. Actually, that's something I've started doing is usually in the morning, while I'm in the shower, I listen to the radio, just to kind of hear, oh, what's going on in the world. I've been listening to music lately just because, it was like every morning it was just, doom listening. I mean, really. And it was like, you know what? I want to start my day on a happier note.
When we have Rick on for that show, one of the things that I learned from him, okay, and he said, you're probably one of those people, you get up in the morning, first thing you grab your phone or sit at the computer and you start reading all the news and everything else. And yeah, I was one of those people, not because I was a crazy person, but like you said, what's going on in the world. So at least I know what's happening. Not a meteor is about to crash in 2 hours and I have no clue what's going on. But one of the things he said when you wake up is to just take in the beauty of the earth, what God is offering you and everything that's around you. Ground yourself that way.
Yeah.
and don't start off with the negative.
Yeah.
Take in all of the positive, and you're going to be able to deal with the negative a lot easier during the day.
Yeah.
And I will
Definitely.
have him when he's on. Rick, if you're listening, okay, that's one of the questions we're going to be asking you, okay, because I think that's so important. I know with myself, it's changed the way I am. And you know what? I don't even go like to whether it be CNN, Fox, MS Now, or whatever they call.
Yeah.
I don't go and look at that anymore.
Yeah.
I really don't. I can almost read your headlines, and I didn't read the headlines. If I want to read news, what I usually read is local news in Ocala, and it's
Yeah.
down here in Florida. That's about the only news I read. I don't really care about the other stuff. So, how do you stay informed then about the world without becoming emotionally consumed by that fear, negativity?
So I think the big thing is it's like, we don't have to cut ourselves off entirely from media, but we need
Hmm.
to limit it and have boundaries, where um, if all I do is watch the news, that's what I'm going to, like that is what's going to help determine my mood.
Hmm.
So watching the news, for 15 minutes is a lot different than watching it all day, So just having good boundaries and limiting that stuff, limiting online exposure, limiting media, all that.
My dad, 94 in a nursing home, but even when he wasn't, all he did when he was living with my brother is he had Fox News on all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd watch Band of Brothers, one or two other shows, but 99% of the time it was Fox News. And my brother used to, in fact, I'm going to cut the clip of what you just said there. Okay, it will probably be one of the clips from the show, but I'm also going to send that to him later today. Okay, because I want him to understand why my dad is so grouchy all the time and stuff. It's because when you're deluged
Yeah.
24/7 with bad news and things that, news is there. They're supposed to be there to report what's happening. They're also following an agenda of what they're told to tell.
Yeah.
And that's affecting the tone of how we act and react in this country right now. So, like you said, just turn it off.
Yeah.
Okay. Limit that time. I mean, myself, I'm not online that often.
Yeah.
I mean, you might get like jokes from me and stuff like that a
Sure.
couple of different times a day. I haven't been on all day. It's just I happen to go on during that time
Yeah.
for 5 minutes and that's it. And then I get out. Okay. I don't want to be there. So I'm going to ask the final question.
Okay.
I feel like Cornick. I hold in my hand the final question. Okay. Dr. Davis, how important is hope during difficult and uncertain times?
It's incredibly important. It's hope isn't pretending that problems don't exist. It's just believing that difficulty's not the end of the story.
Hmm.
It's just an obstacle. So I think that hope is extremely important, and we need hope. We really do.
Yeah, even with AI, whether it be with Iran, whether no matter what you're watching, you got to have hope that something is going to get better.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're looking at stuff that this is just going to continue to get worse and there is no way out of it, then we just better resign ourselves to like a World War III
Yeah.
and the end of civilization as we know it right now. So let's not go that far, folks. Well, we have the power to change that too. So tonight's conversation really reminds us that many people are carrying invisible weight right now. And think of all the GLP-1 drugs that we were talking about a week or two ago. We're carrying now invisible weight that we didn't
Yeah.
even know about. It's
That's right.
financial pressure, uncertainty about the future, constant negative news, division, fear, exhaustion. All that stuff, folks, adds up. And sometimes people feel like they're carrying it silently.
Yeah. And an important thing to remember is that struggling emotionally, during these difficult times doesn't mean that you're weak. Not at all. It means you're human. Chronic stress affects the mind and body, and it's important for people to recognize when you need support, rest, healthy boundaries, or someone to talk to.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the biggest takeaways from tonight's show is that people are not alone in feeling overwhelmed right now. And remember, as I said earlier, that this show should be titled Overwhelmed. Okay,
Yeah.
because I really think we're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So many are quietly dealing with the anxiety, sleep issues, fear about finances, fear about the future, or simply emotional exhaustion.
And while we may not be able to control everything happening in the world around us, we can work on how we care for ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. Small, healthy steps matter more than people realize.
And if tonight's episode spoke to you, okay, well, we did, but if tonight's episode spoke to you eternally, we encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear this conversation. Now, think about that. You probably know someone who's going through exactly what we talked about. I'm a gambling man, okay, which we just talked about gambling, but I would say you probably know more than a handful of people that are going through some financial struggles right now,
Absolutely.
okay, and need to hear this. Share the show
especially
with
right
them
now.
because you know what? I think even if they don't 100% listen to us, you plant the seed in the back of their head to start to chill out.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe that's another word.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed and need to chill out.
So if you-
Sometimes simply knowing someone else understands what you're feeling, that can make a big difference to people.
Yeah, it really can. If you or someone you know struggling emotionally, please reach out for help. Talk to someone you trust, connect with a mental health professional, or contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. You don't have to face things alone.
Remember, and that works in Canada and it works here in the United States too. Just text 988 or call 988 on your phone and it works. So, folks, we know we say this every week. I almost hate when this paragraph comes up when I'm writing this out here. It says, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment about tonight's episode. We see anywhere between 15 to 20,000 people watching each show. I mean, really, it's, God bless every single one of you that's watching, okay?
Thank you.
But you know what? If you all subscribed, we would see a lot more subscribed people. And you know what? And it's not, again, did you see a commercial during this? Okay, keep breaking up. We're not monetized, folks. But what that does is it gets us out in front of more people. And it helps us spread the word a little better. That's what YouTube does. So I know everyone has feelings about what's happening in the world. So if you do leave a comment, I ask everyone, be respectful. You know what? You can have a great conversation on how we can protect our mental health right now.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling right now. Are you feeling uncertain? Are you stressed about covering your bills each week? Are you concerned about the future for yourself and your children? We would love to start the discussion.
And also never forget to visit our website, yourlifematterspodcast.com, to learn more about the show. Maybe become a guest on a future episode, because we've gotten a lot of our guests through that spot there.
Have.
Okay. And never forget, you can buy your official Your Life Matters show merchandise off of there as well. Heck, today, I think when we were out this morning, I was out with my wife. I was wearing, remember the shirt that said to you, the blue Your Life Matters show shirt I was wearing out when I'm out now. Probably it's sitting there waiting for me to put back on when the show is over. Yeah. So,
well, good. So thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
and always remember, your life truly does matter. So God bless you all. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.